form without the slightest notice. And that my mental faculties were sound enough a few minutes back, I was certain. The first premonition of anything of the kind had come upon me with the melodramatic utterance of the man I had found in the street.
"Paul Lessingham! Beware! The Beetle!"
The words were ringing in my ears. What was that? There was a buzzing sound behind me. I turned to see what it was. It moved as I moved, so that it was still at my back. I swung swiftly right round on my heels. It still eluded me. It was still behind. I stood and listened. What was it that hovered so persistently at my back? The buzzing was distinctly audible. It was like the humming of a bee, or could it be a beetle? My whole life long I have had an antipathy to beetles, of any sort or kind. I have objected neither to rats, nor mice, nor cows, nor bulls, nor snakes, nor spiders, nor toads, nor lizards, nor any of the 1,001 other creatures, animate or otherwise, to which so many people have a rooted and apparently illogical dislike. My pet and only horror has been beetles. The mere suspicion of a harmless, and, I am told, necessary cockroach being within several feet has always made me seriously uneasy. The thought that a great winged beetle, to me a flying beetle is the horror of horrors, was with me in my bedroom, goodness alone knew how it had got there, was unendurable. Anyone who had beheld me during the next few moments would certainly have supposed I was deranged. I turned and twisted, sprang from side to side, screwed myself into impossible positions in order to obtain a glimpse of the detested visitant. But in vain. I could hear it all the time, but see it never. The buzzing sound was continually behind. The terror returned. I began to think that my brain must be softening. I dashed to the bed. Flinging myself on my knees, I tried to pray, but I was speechless. Words would not come. My thoughts would not take shape. I all at once became conscious, as I struggled to ask help of God, that I was wrestling with something evil; that if I only could ask help of him, evil would flee. But I could not. I was helpless, overmastered. I hid my face in the bedclothes, cramming my fingers into my ears; but the buzzing was behind me all the time. I sprang up, striking out, blindly, wildly, right and left, hitting nothing. The buzzing always came from a point at which, at the moment, I was not aiming. I tore off my clothes. I had on a lovely frock, which I had worn for the first time that night. I had had it specially made for the occasion of the Duchess's ball, and, more especially, in honour of Paul's great speech. I had said to myself, when I saw my image in a mirror, that it was the most exquisite gown I had ever had, that it suited me to perfection, and that it should continue in my wardrobe for many a day, if only as a souvenir of a memorable night. Now, in the madness of my terror, all reflections of that sort were forgotten. My only desire was to away with it. I tore it off anyhow, letting it fall in rags on the floor at my feet. All else that I had on I flung in the same way after it. It was a veritable holocaust of dainty garments, I acting as relentless executioner, who am, as a rule, so tender with my things. I leapt upon the bed, switched off the electric light, hurried into bed, burying myself over head and all deep down between the sheets. I had hoped that by shutting out the light I might regain my senses, that in the darkness I might have opportunity for sane reflection; but I had made a grievous error. I had exchanged bad for worse. The darkness lent added terrors. The light had not been out 5 seconds before I would have given all that I was worth to be able to switch it on again. As I cowered beneath the bedclothes, I heard the buzzing sound above my head. The sudden silence of the darkness had rendered it more audible than it had been before. The thing, whatever it was hovering above the bed. It came nearer and nearer, it grew clearer and clearer. I felt it alight upon the coverlet. Shall I ever forget the sensations with which I did feel it? It weighed upon me like a ton of lead. How much of the seeming weight was real, and how much imaginary, I cannot pretend to say, but that it was much heavier than any beetle I have ever seen or heard of, I am sure. For a time it was still, and during that time I doubt if I even drew my breath. Then I felt it begin to move, in wobbling fashion, with awkward, ungainly gait, stopping every now and then, as if for rest. I was conscious that it was progressing, slowly, yet surely, towards the head of the bed. The emotion of horror with which I realised what this progression might mean will be, I fear, with me to the end of my life; not only in dreams, but too often, also, in my waking hours. My heart, as the psalmist has it, melted like wax within me. I was incapable of movement, dominated by something as hideous as, and infinitely more powerful than, the fascination of the serpent. When it reached the head of the bed, what I feared, with what a fear, would happen, did happen. It began to find its way inside, to creep between the sheets. The wonder is, I did not die. I felt it coming nearer and nearer, inch by inch. I knew that it was upon me, that escape there was none. I felt something touch my hair. And then oblivion did come to my aid. For the first time in my life, I swooned. End of chapter 27. Recording by Ruth Golding.